Hello and welcome to this episode of GraftCast. Today I'm with the ex-head of strength and conditioning at Northampton Saints, Marc Finney, who now has his own business, Finney Training. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, nice to meet you, mate. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Could you just go into a bit of detail about your professional journey so far, and just a bit of a whistle-stop tour?
Yeah, okay. So going back to sort of university times, so I graduated in sport and exercise science. Did my undergraduate stuff there. Started a master's, but my passion was to really be in the field and working with athletes. Mm-hmm. I jacked that in, actually. I only did a year of my MSc and took a position as a training director for a private sport and exercise science company, and spent 4 years working with them. Along the way, I did several years as a lecturer as well. So that probably gave me a reasonable sort of theoretical foundation. But like I said, my biggest passion is the practical application of sport and exercise science. So wherever I could, I wanted to learn in the field. So I ended up actually on a part-time basis working as it wasn't a strength and conditioning coach back then. They were called fitness trainers or fitness coach at Lincoln City Football Club. So I did a few years under some different managers and some quite interesting experiences, but on very low budget, learnt quite quickly about working with teams. Mm-hmm. And that's what sort of then progressed later on to sort of working in rugby. So I actually got a footballing background, but knew nothing about rugby whatsoever.
Oh, really?
So never even played the game. Even at school, it wasn't one of those things that was really offered on our PE curriculum. But always had a keen sporting background.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how was your upbringing? So your family and close friends?
From a sort of sporting point of view?
Yeah, I mean from a professional point of view.
No, definitely. We were always really active. I've got an older brother as well, but great role models from that point of view as well was, we were always physically active. My dad was a good footballer, and we always played out. We spent a lot of time doing that sort of stuff. A lot of golf, racket sports. Mm-hmm. Biking, whatever, motorbikes. We did a bit of everything, and I think without even knowing it, I developed a reasonable sort of sporting repertoire of skills. And I think that a lot of and again, not going on soapboxes where you don't see kids playing out and experiencing all those sports as much as what I perhaps did and my generation did. I didn't really realise it, but with playing a bit of everything, it gives you that variation in sort of different skill sets. Yeah. Multi-directional movement or whatever it is. So I like to think that my parents gave me a good foundation for my future coaching, because I'm cracking on a bit now, but I still enjoy doing demonstrations, particularly when working with the youths that I work with.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And was there ever a sort of time back then that you thought that maybe you'd go into professional sport, or? Oh,
I'd have loved to have done Hugo, but let's be honest, I probably just wasn't good enough. I was always a fit footballer, and I played to a reasonable standard. Unfortunately, broke my leg when I was 21, and then that was a lengthy injury. I had a tib-fib fracture, and that's really how I got into sort of the strength and conditioning side of things, because didn't really have access to any sort of rehab, so I had to learn a lot of the stuff myself, and always enjoyed helping and coaching people. So it was a natural thing for me to want to go down either the fitness trainer route or trying to coach and pass on, that sort of thing. So you quickly realise that perhaps at 21 I'm not going to become a professional footballer, but it was a nasty break, and I'm a great believer in serendipity. I think it happens for a reason, doesn't it? Spent several years rehabbing, finished off playing when I was 27, which I regret a little bit now, because you feel like maybe I packed up a little bit early. But again, that was a few niggles and bits and bobs, and priorities changed. I guess I'd played since being a 10-year-old all the way through to 27, and finished off at a decent standard, but wasn't going to progress, I don't think so.
And what position did you play in football?
Started off in midfield, but then wing back, because I enjoyed the fitness side of things, the overlapping, and that was always one of my biggest assets. If I thought I wasn't as skillful as some of the players, then I could outwork them, and that was instilled in me again parents, dad, strong work ethic, go and run.
Yeah.
And it comes from a good place, but probably now I look back and think some of the training that I did in those early stages wasn't the right sort of thing to do.
Yeah.
Sort of pounding the roads and running for miles and miles as a footballer, where now we know that, the demands are multi-sprint really, and I'd have been better off spending a lot more time doing that. But I used to run up and down Derbyshire hills.
And so you touched on sort of your role models earlier on. Was there anybody sort of professionally, role modelly, anybody who were your role models professionally, sort of footballers? Or
As a kid, I used to have posters on my wall of Glenn Hoddle, Chris Waddle, and later Paul Gascoigne and that sort of things. For my sins, I was a Spurs supporter, but I couldn't name the team now, mate. I've no idea. Since I've worked in rugby, sort of maybe my the football bubble burst a little bit, I think. And the way that the game has gone. Still love the game, but just how it's run and one thing or the other. Yeah.
So when did you first when did rugby become a part of your life? Was it literally as you joined Saints?
So I was teaching actually. I'd left that private company and I'd just gone back into lecturing for 12 months. And it was actually one of my former students who was head of performance at Sale Sharks. And they'd won the championship, was that 2007?
Yeah.
And he got headhunted for the job at Saints with Jim Mallender, who used to be at Sale Sharks. And the performance director at Saints, he gave me the opportunity, which I'm very grateful for, And again, it's your network, isn't it? But he knew what I've been doing, and he'd actually shadowed me with some sessions when I was at the football club as well. So he knew kind of what I was going to bring, which was speed and power development. That was my kind of area of expertise. He knew that I was a confident guy in terms of getting in front of groups. It meant I got no preconceived ideas about rugby. And Saints had some big stars at the time as well, some world-class players. But I didn't know them from Adam. I just treated them as athletes and individuals I wanted to improve. So I just walked in and... so from 2008, they were rebuilding really, the Saints were then, because they'd previously been relegated, and then Jim had come in and brought in different coaches, was rebuilding sort of the medical and the performance side of the offering, the analytical side of things, and it was becoming very, very, much more professional.
Sure. And just as you joined Saints and as you joined professional rugby, what do you think was, apart from the physical stature, what was the main differences between the two sports, football and rugby?
Well, again, both multi-directional sports, but you can obviously see significant differences in sort of body shape and size. So the specific demands of rugby, you can be very, very tailored to what you're doing, but ultimately they both need to have a big engine, so a big aerobic capacity, and they both need to be powerful and sprint and change direction quickly. You probably could argue that some of the demands in rugby are a little bit more linear, whereas there's a lot of twisting and turning in football, and there are a lot lighter individuals, a lot more precious to work with as well, by the way. And then the differences in strength and size. Obviously rugby is a very contact-based sport. It's aggressive, on the front foot, never back down type sport, where there's huge amounts of collisions and contacts, and it's about momentum, so you need to be heavy, but you also need to be fast, whereas in football there's more of an idea of being very mobile, being able to being lighter, being quicker, so you'd have to tailor your needs specifically to the individuals, and I think that's quite a big mindset shift, and I noticed that hugely from working with footballers, where they're probably a little bit sceptical, a little bit cynical about, I've got very, very precious about my body, I want to feel really fresh at the weekend. If I'm going to do something in the week that's going to tighten me up and I feel a little bit stiff or fatigued, they'll never want to touch it again with a barge pole, whereas the rugby players would lap it up. They're like, make me as strong and as big and as powerful and as robust as you possibly can, because I want to dominate, they don't want to be bullied, so you'd be able to go to town with them. And we made mistakes, of course we did, because we were still learning as practitioners, but we got away with a hell of a lot as well. Things that you probably wouldn't do now, get away with back in 2008. But it's such a fast-growing sport. But I'll probably say majority of the teams are all doing very similar things. Yeah, whereas at that time, a lot of it was like new methods, new techniques. A lot of stuff being learned from track and field, a lot of things being learned from powerlifting, bodybuilding, all these different things thrown in to create that rugby player that you see now, the modern day rugby player that's fast, mobile, got a great engine, they're very powerful. They don't carry a lot of body fat anymore. You know, that old sort of dump truck just going forward and hitting scrums and then walking to the next breakdown. That's not acceptable anymore. Well, certainly not in the
in amateur it is.
Yeah, well, in amateur you might see it. Yeah, but in the professional game, you wouldn't last very long. Maybe on the continent.
Yeah,
some of the big French players. And working with I don't know. We'll talk about that. But working with the Tongans was quite an interesting one as well.
Yeah, I was going to say the Tongan French players are ridiculous.
They're massive men, lovely men, massive men.
So let's just talk a little bit about your role and how that evolved during your time at Saints. So you started as just a sort of a PT in a way at Saints, was it?
So my first role was as senior strength and conditioning coach. Okay. So sort of the number 2 to the head of performance. It was a good role. And at that point there was only myself and another assistant. We did bring an intern in as well. So there was 3 of us sort of at the chalk face delivering, whereas now that I think that department's huge. You know, there's so many sort of hands on deck, as it were, and then specialising in different roles as well. Sort of sports science, analysis, sort of contact conditioning. You know, it's really growing, I'm sure.
Brilliant. And sort of your development as in your professional role throughout that time, did you have to bring leadership aspects into it in those 10 years that you were there?
I think so. I would say so. A lot of the sort of obviously the direct leadership was by the director of rugby and the sort of the forwards coach and the backs coach, and I had a line manager, which was my boss, Nick, as head of performance. So, but yeah, day-to-day stuff. You know, you're leading sessions. You've got to have the boys' attention straight away. So, and rugby players will definitely smell if you're not the type of leader that's going to sort of take control of the group, as it were. Any sort of weakness or vulnerability, they're going to jump all over. It's definitely not a role for the faint-hearted. When you've got to get, you know, a group of 20, 30 guys prepared for a game, you've got to be able to sort of step up and take control.
And was Malander the director of rugby for the whole time that you were there? So
yes.
Just before you left, Boyd came in?
That's right, yeah. So after, literally, I left in 2008 as Boyd was coming in.
So let's talk about 2014 and the obvious double sort of trophy winning season.
Yeah.
How was it being part of that sort of the Saints at that point?
Yeah, that was incredible, wasn't it? I think so. The year before there was a bit of heartache from getting to the final and then unfortunately losing against was it Leicester? Crikey.
Yeah, it was
challenging now.
That was
that final, and on the back end of that, I think it was perfect timing really for a lot of those players that were in the squad. They were established players, and you could probably say that they were peaking, as it were, in terms of their rugby careers. They were at that right sort of age, a lot of the boys, and but undoubtedly, I think the thing that really drove that final performance and that whole year was just the culture that we had at Saints. The players were absolutely outstanding. They were really connected well, and they just had this belief and drive that they were going to make up for the previous year and go all the way. So it was an amazing experience. And unfortunately, you know, you sort of think you're going to back it up the next year, and we did. We had a good year. We went all the way again, but there was something missing, I think, then, in all honesty. And then preceding years after that, that's when we started to taper off, obviously, in performances on the pitch went in the other direction. So, the 2014 is very special.
Sure, yeah. I can see the shirt on the wall there.
Got a shirt on the wall, a few bits and pieces as memorabilia, but that's over 10 years ago now, isn't it? So, it's passed, and they've gone on this time to be successful again, which has been amazing for them.
So during your time at Saints, at what point did you think, I want to start my own business, I want to be a sort of business owner?
Well, it came to an end in 2018 for me, and I took the decision in the end to walk away from it. It was, it's rugby can, I think, just professional sport, it can take it out of you, and I think that's where I was. Felt a little bit like every day was the same as well, and looking for new challenges. And fortunately, I got this facility here, so I was able to build a client base quite quickly. So I knew that, sort of stepping away from it wasn't going to be the end of the world. And actually, being at the Saints for 10 years was great leverage for me to use the badge, if you like, right or wrong. But as soon as you start offering services and people, are interested in your background, they want to know where you've come from, it makes you stand out a little bit. And
100%.
It's quite a busy business space, isn't it? There's a lot of personal trainers. So how do you make yourself stand out?
Yeah.
I had to lean on the fact that I'd got 15 years of elite sports background and that sort of pedigree. So I think that equips you with certain skill sets that people like, and particularly people that have got niggles and aches and pains. And my background was the mid and end stage rehab of rugby players. So you end up with quite a big toolbox, because in rugby everything gets hit from the toenails to the top of their head. So you've got to find ways and be creative about how you can still get adaptation, still train them around their arm in a sling or their foot in a boot or a niggly back or whatever it is. You come up with all sorts of interesting and unique ways of training people. So general pops coming to see me, but then a lot of people coming to see me for rugby, reconditioning initially, but then I've gone on to work with footballers, people that have been in car crashes, stroke victims, all sorts of things.
Wow.
So it's really opened my eyes to all sorts of different things, and it makes every day a little bit different, which is what I was looking for.
And what have been some of the main hurdles or challenges sort of with that transition from that career into being a business owner
and an entrepreneur?
I struggle with that word.
Entrepreneur, saying it. Without doubt, we were talking at the beginning, weren't we, about having to wear so many different hats, from working on. I've been terrible with social media because I kind of didn't know about it, and I've had to bring people in like Jack, and now I've got a mentor. So I outsource whatever I can, because you can't be good at everything, right? So even your accountancy and things like that, but trying to build a business, I've got some close friends that help set me up on how to actually write an invoice. So the very basic things like that, producing a spreadsheet and then keeping track of your accounts and how you do it, so that you see that you're making money, what you're spending your money on, and then actually building a business plan so that you've got some sort of progression. Because otherwise you just get immersed in the day-to-day stuff and you don't move forward. So it's taken me years, to feel now that, breaking more into the online sort of stuff with Fit That Body Plan, I've had to have help for that. So that's probably been the biggest challenge. And then when the pandemic hit as well, having to pivot and shift your business, because I sell my time, being in front of people is what I do. And then when all of that happened and we couldn't have that direct contact, I had to shift and pivot. And fortunately, I was able to sort of shift about 20 clients into online, and I was doing video sessions for a while. But again, that makes you adapt and shift and pivot, like I say, and away you go. You find a new way of working.
And have any of those changes that you made during the pandemic, have they sort of carried on afterwards? And is there anything that sort of has weaved into the normal life?
Not really. No. Not really, because I'm not going to say that I enjoyed that at all. Videoing people or sending content that way, it's not how I like to work. I like the physical interaction. I like the crack of working with people and that empathy that you get from directly one-to-one working with people or small groups. So I hated that. I hated that period, really, to be
honest. And would you say that you've now found a niche in what you do? Do you work with a niche sort of type of person, or is it?
I've got a real mix, Hugo. I've got sort of people that come and see me for sort of general health and well-being, and sort of, let's say, sort of more the aesthetic side of things. They just want to stay in shape. But then I've got the broken people as well, and I've got my sports performance people. I was still working in rugby from 2018. I was working as a consultant at Coventry Rugby. I took a position there as an athletic trainer up there, and then I did that wanted to try and prove myself on an international level as well. So when that opportunity came to do an autumn international tour with the Tongans, I did a 4-week tour with them, and that was amazing. So and that was sort of during the pandemic period as well. So we had a game up in Edinburgh. We played Scotland, and then we moved and relocated down to Lensbury, and we prepped them that week for a game at Twickenham against England, and then we went to France and played the French Barbarians, and then finished in Romania. So it was a really good tour.
Brilliant,
and travelling and working with those guys was incredible. Loved it, absolutely loved it. A lot of pressure because you're dumped in a hotel with 20, 30 Tongans. They've all got crazy names, right?
Yeah.
So you're trying to learn names because you want to be personable. And one thing I learned from working with the Polynesians, they take a little bit of time to warm to you, so they trust you. But once they know what you're about and they weigh you up quite quickly, they'll love you forever. So I think initially getting those barriers, breaking that down, and learning some of their cultural things, which was amazing insight. The prayers and the lotu, singing the songs. That was amazing. Absolutely
brilliant.
Amazing.
That was an amazing experience. Sounds incredible.
It's good fun.
So you talked about the mentorship side of things. How important is that? Sort of, you outsource your mentorship and stuff like that. How important has that become in sort of being a business owner? Yeah,
no, that's been crucial for me because I think I'll be honest. I think I felt like I was drifting a little bit. And not getting stuff done. So having somebody that keeps you accountable and somebody that's been there and done it. So I was lucky that I found, through one of my clients actually, had seen this guy and thought we'd be a good fit. So I contacted him, and he comes from a military background. He's extremely disciplined in terms of his own drive and his work ethic and everything. And he's just got me on it relentlessly, just every single day, milking every day so that I can get as much out of what I do. So it's not just the direct stuff, but in between, I'm really trying to work hard on my business now and drive it forward, and that's beginning to pay dividends really with Fit Dad Body Plan.
Brilliant. So can you just tell us a little bit about the online work that you've been doing recently?
So that grew from me also being, I'm 50 now. All right, so Fit Dad Body Plan, this is my third, it's just 3.0 Fit Dad Body Plan, and the first couple of cohorts I took through, it was absolutely fine, and it worked reasonably well. We got good results, but ultimately what I was trying to target was those 40 plus guys, your stereotypical 40 plus dad that's got a lot going on, family life, work life, and they're trying to make sense of health and fitness, and I think we're all pretty guilty of sometimes overcomplicating health and fitness, nutrition, whatever it is. And I wanted to show a way, or a systematic way that was simple and accessible, realistic. So Fit Dad Body Plan grew from there as an online offering from myself that helps people get in shape. It's an intensive 12-week transformation plan. Where I go through what's your goals, what do you want to do, what have been your biggest challenges, what have been your biggest struggles, and how can I help you, and I have these chats with people to start off to see if they're the right fit for Fit Dad Body Plan, and vice versa, if I'm the right coach that's going to help them. But invariably it's guys that have starting to become more and more consciously aware of their mortality without getting morbid, the sort of 40s, 50s, and a little bit older sometimes, and aches and pains. They find it harder to shift the belly fat. They put weight on, whereas in their 20s and 30s they could probably still get away with it, still probably stay in reasonable shape and fitness. But obviously with aging, things start to decline. Not just the wear and tear on your body, but hormonally things start to shift, and you can very quickly start to accumulate belly fat, and that's obviously dangerous. All right, so it's not just about the vanity or the aesthetic side of things. There's some pretty serious, and when I have the conversations with them, that's what it boils down to. When you really strip away the layers and they talk about what they really want to achieve, they want to be role models for their kids. They want to be attractive to their wives, their partners. They want to feel confident because they're self-confident, they're looking in the mirror and they don't like what they see anymore, you know. So all of this stuff is pretty negative, and it's quite dark when you think about it. But Fit Dad Body Plans come from there, and it's a great little way of kickstarting those new habits, replacing those old habits and bad habits and belief systems that they had about what they should eat and what they should drink and how they should exercise. Mm-hmm. So I've put it in a package, and I coach them through it. They get unlimited help from me, and they can tap into that, and I help them shift some timber, get them moving better, feeling better, and I enjoy doing it. Mm-hmm. It's good fun. It's very different to what I do with the direct stuff, but a lot of those skills are transferable, because 40, 50-year-olds, they come with their problems, you know. They've got achy backs, bad knees, stiff ankles, you know, tight shoulder from whatever. A lot of ex-sports people, so you've got to work with what you've got. Mm-hmm. And I enjoy it.
Brilliant. And is there sort of what's the best piece of advice that you've been given in your professional journey, would you say?
I've been given lots of advice, and I've had some great mentors over the years. But I'll probably say doing the basics, being really consistent with doing the basic things, and hard work. Yeah, that was something I've always had drilled into me from an early age. Mm-hmm. You know, you only get out of something what you put in. That was like a mantra in our family with everything that we did. That's great advice, and I'd pass that on to anybody. Mm-hmm. I mean, when I was at Saints, we used to have guys that come in and shadow. I've always thought that is a great way to see what, you know, and how to learn from watching. We're all different. We all have different learning types, right? So I was always encouraged to get involved and watch and get hands on, and it's a great way. Experiential learning is a great thing, and that's what I would say is a great bit of advice as well for youngsters coming through the industry anyway.
Brilliant. And it's a sort of similar sort of question again, but it's sort of what habits would you insert into any entrepreneur's sort of daily life that would make them successful? Yeah,
relentless consistency. That's what my mentor says. Just never give an inch. Yeah. You know, you've got to be on it constantly. As soon as you start drifting, as soon as you start going back into your old ways and your bad habits, then you start to lose again quite quickly. So I enjoy getting up in the morning. I'm motivated, I'm driven. I know I've got my clients to work with, and I honestly say I enjoy working with all my clients. I'm very lucky that my client base I get on well with as well. But my family motivate me a hell of a lot. So failure is not really an option. Yeah. So that's my driving force every single day to keep pushing. And my ambition to still be successful and still love learning still. You've got to have a great appetite for that. So wherever I can, I go and watch people myself and continue my own professional development. So that's a big factor as well.
Thank you very much for coming on the show, Marc. It's been brilliant.
Yeah, no, really enjoyed it, Hugo. Thanks for having me on.